Well, here we are. The Ohio State Buckeyes are your 2024 national champions, and Ryan Day, who has the highest winning percentage of any coach in America, has joined an illustrious group of very few to hoist that trophy. And if you told me 7 weeks ago after the Buckeyes dropped their fourth consecutive game to Michigan 13-10, and I was walking out of a very cold shoe in Columbus, Ohio, that we'd be here hoisting that trophy just a few weeks later, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have called you crazy, and I wasn't giving Ryan Day nor the leaders of this team, the seniors that came back, the transfers that played such monumental roles in the success of the Buckeyes this year, I wasn't giving those guys enough credit. The ability to lock back in, turn the page after such a heartbreaking loss like that, a loss that should have derailed your season. I thought it would have. I didn't give them enough credit, and that's where I was wrong. I won't apologize for how I view the game. Ohio State and Michigan was the greatest rivalry in sports, and I firmly believe that, and I'll take that to my grave. But the sport has changed so drastically over the last year or so, and everything that's come with that has diminished how much the game means in terms of a season-by-season basis, and it's going to take a while for me to come around to that. I think something that's really going to speed that up is watching Ohio State drop that game this year and then hoist the trophy just a few weeks later. You can still accomplish your ultimate goal even if you don't win the game. And I think that's the biggest difference between this year and years past, with the exception of C.J. Stroud and the Buckeyes just a few years ago when they lost to Georgia in the semifinal. More often than not, almost always, you have to beat Michigan in order to have a chance to win a national championship. Now that's not the case anymore. Again, it's going to take me a while to get there. That game still means a lot to me, but it is not number one, and it shouldn't be number one for anyone. Number one should be being ranked number one. And how do you do that at the end of the year? You do that by winning a national championship. The two teams in America that suffered the two most embarrassing losses last year, Ohio State as a 3-touchdown favorite to their biggest rival, and Notre Dame at home to a MAC school, Northern Illinois. Those two teams played for a national championship last night. Those two teams finished the year ranked number 1 and number 2 in the AP poll. That would never be possible in past years of college football. Never. Those losses of that magnitude would have eliminated you from contention for a national championship. Now with the 12-team playoff, with this format, you have the ability to flip a switch, show people what you're all about. And that's exactly what happened to the Buckeyes. They took full advantage of this new format. That loss to Michigan flipped a switch for Ryan Day and this team. They needed it. I'm not entirely sure why they needed it, and I think that's where most of my anger came from that day. The team we've watched for the last 4 games going to win this national championship, that's the team me and the rest of Buckeye Nation knew was there the entire year. We just hadn't seen it, or we hadn't seen a lot of it. And it really went back into its shell against Michigan, scoring only 10 points. This is an offense that has rolled through the playoffs since. I don't know what it flipped inside these players and coaches, but that loss changed something, and I think it changed the Buckeye program forever. Jack Sawyer's letter to the Players Tribune talked about how much the players love playing for Coach Day and how they had 2 options after that Michigan loss, option A and option B. Option A that everyone, including myself, expected them to do, to lay down, to quit, to die, to call it a season. And option B, which is what they did, strap on the helmets, lace up the cleats, get out there and fight. And that's what they did. They fought and they fought and they fought week after week after week, and they steamrolled one of the hardest paths to a championship that anyone will ever have to go through. 2-score wins in every playoff game against ranked opponents. Unbelievable. Unbelievable stretch for Ryan Day and this team. And that comes back to, I'm sure, right after that Michigan game, there were some tough conversations. And that's where I credit Ryan Day for turning the page, not lingering in that sadness, in that loss, and focusing on what's still in front of the Buckeyes. They knew they weren't going to get gold pants. They knew they weren't going to go to Indianapolis and win a Big Ten championship, but they still had that third thing. They still had that third thing that all these seniors came back for, and that's to end it with a national championship. And they seized the opportunity they had in front of them, afforded to them by this new format. They took advantage, and they won it. Outside of just the rivalry, as Justin Kinner said this morning on Off the Bench, reservations about Ryan Day's ability to win big games were, at the very least, before this season, valid to bring up. We can, debate where you stand on them, but they were valid to talk about. 10-7 against top 10 opponents before this season, 2-5 against top 5 opponents this season, or before this season. This year, Ryan Day and the Buckeyes won 5 top 5 games, more than any team in the history of college football. They beat 6 of the other 7 teams in the AP top 8 to end the year. 6 of the 7, they're the 8th. Only one they didn't beat is Georgia. The run this Ohio State team went on to end this season and through the Big Ten, finishing the regular season at 10-2, is unbelievable. The schedule they ran through, the teams they beat, the wins they have under their belt, the resume that will forever be attached to the 2024 national champion Ohio State Buckeyes is one of the best in the history of college football. And we knew that they were capable of playing this level of football. We knew that the team we watched for the last 4 weeks, the team we watched hoist that trophy, was in there all along. And I think that's where a lot of the anger came from. The team was being held back. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was mental. I don't know if they weren't locked in on certain games or whatever. But once this team locked in, they were the best team in the country by a significant margin. And we saw that play out throughout the college football playoff. And that's why very early into that Tennessee game, Ohio State became the favorite to win the entire thing because everyone saw what the rest of us saw. Oh, this is the Buckeye team that we expected in 2024. This is that $20 million roster that's one of the best ever assembled in Columbus, Ohio this year. And they finally played like it down the stretch. And that's a lot of credit to the players, and they deserve it. But that's most credit to Ryan Day, because a coach could lay down and die after a terrible loss like that Michigan one, but he didn't. He chose to fight. He chose to rally his troops, and he chose to win a championship, and that's exactly what he did. Ryan Day has the highest winning percentage of any active head coach, and he is now the national champion. There are not many coaches, if any coaches, I would put above Ryan Day, and there are certainly none that I would rather have in Columbus coaching the Buckeyes. We're incredibly lucky to have him. 70-10 head coaches don't just grow on trees. I overreacted after a Michigan loss because I propped that rivalry up on a pedestal so far above anything else in sports that maybe I started to go a little bit crazy. It's Ohio against the world. It's always been Ohio against the world, and we just won. It's a damn good day to be a Buckeye. We're national champions, and that's because of Ryan Day.